Now, to view this presentation, you better be stoned, rolling, or in another dimension, because this is gonna F you up, because it F'd me up, and I'm like, hey, dude, that ain't cool, but it's kind of cool, but I have to check my sanity really quick. So, without further ado, let's start this. Okay, hello. To start, my name is Jordan. I am going to be your God MC for this. So this started as a research paper on conspiracy theories about Leonardo DaVinci, and originally I was going to go with like the Da Vinci Code, and I think an episode of Futurama, and kind of circled around that entire thing. But to be honest, I wanted to just figure out why the world has blown this great master's life and life work out of proportion. Where I'm like, this dude's just like an artist, and he made some really cool stuff, and had some notebooks and wrote backwards, so people think he's like eccentric, so he must have something behind him. But I'm like, you know, this man might not be all he's chalked up to be. You know, there have been some people who say he was part of the and there have been sightings of like alien spaceships that apparently brought him to Earth, but I didn't see that. I wasn't alive in the 1500s, 15th century, right? Is that when he was alive? I'm not sure. I haven't been to class that much. I mean, yeah, there was a book by Dan Brown called the Da Vinci Code that was made because of this man. Regardless of what anybody said, this guy obviously has something to him, but like, why? I mean, I get it. His art was really prolific, but was it because of his vast study of forms and figures and how inventive he was? I mean, why not Raphael, the code? Why not Michelangelo? Why not Aeropostale? Why not aerosol? I don't see any conspiracy theories about how Febreze doesn't actually remove odors from your rug. To me, I think it was because the guy was weird, but I'm sure one person saw it and was like, this dude wrote backwards, and they thought they found the Holy Grail. But then again, I'm not an art history major or professor. Dude, I barely again show up to class because, say it with me, depression! But I will tell you this, on the days that I did show up to class, I learned some things, and I took some notes, mostly doodling my sketchbooks, but then one day it hit me. That's the one day when everything changed. I wasn't going to make my paper on conspiracy theories on Leo. No. I was going to create my own conspiracy theory about Leonardo da Vinci. Welcome, children, to Jordan's, not Dan Brown's, F Dan Brown, Jordan's Da Vinci Code. So I only have 10 minutes, but let me set the scene. So we were looking at The Last Supper, and I was cooling in the back when I saw something strange. A precursor to all of this, I have a mental disease called bipolar disorder, and with it comes mania, and essentially when you are in a manic state, it's like being on meth, so you are in a completely other reality, friend. And the thing is, about these states, you experience something called apophenia. Apophenia is described as the spontaneous perception of connections and meaningfulness of unrelated phenomena. It's essentially this dude named Conrad focused on finding the abnormal meaning of significantly random experiences of psychotic people. So essentially, your boy has experiences in various fields of crazy and weird. So that's why I was able to look at it this way. Now, the other two things that I'm going to need to fully dive into this conspiracy theory properly is not believing in coincidences and believing in some sort of divine force, not necessarily God, but maybe just like a sloth that just kind of looks at the universe and like, yo, dude, that's some dope shit. That's it. Ready? Here we go! So guys, only have 5 minutes to do this, so we're going to do this in a flash round. So let me flash back to the day in class when we were discussing Last Supper. I was looking at the painting when I saw the two men at the end of the table rise up as if they were ghosts coming out of the body, but only for a second. It was then that I was like, okay, there's some ooky spooky shit going on here, so play the X-Files music and call the FBI because it's time to break it down. This shit just don't happen, man. So I paid more attention. I brought myself into a state or mindset of a more apathetic person and how they might perceive it through their eyes. These are the notes that I wrote that day. But before I do that, you have to realize that this is from my perspective, Jordan, on that day. So remember, it's actually very personal. You know, this isn't like a broad thing. This is like, you're looking through Jordan's eyes looking at that shit. So you better be prepared for some weird stuff. So in my notes, I have a historical section for information. The biggest thing that I wrote there was that this was the moment that Christ was going to be betrayed, and he just told it to his boys, and they were like, oh, shit! And then Judas was like, oh, God, it's me! But the real betrayer is some dude who doesn't show up to class and finishes his stuff at the 11th hour, and how he's about to roundhouse kick art historians and Leonardo DaVinci into the 11th dimension! So the next section is just interpretation and meaning, and we're going to go into that now. Okay, so with all the editing, I realized that I do not have enough time to fit this into a 10-minute span, so I'm just going to go straight into line by line what I wrote and what it means. The first line, reclined with 12, truly one began to say, it is me who has dipped shall betray, the Son of Man will go, but it would be better for him if he would not been born, Rabbi, you have said so. So this is my mind at this state. My art history instructor was reciting some literature about the scene written by someone, and I was writing down words that I heard that were coming to me based off the words that she was saying and probably some other candy at the bottom of the McDonald's fishbowl that is my brain, just so I can pick it up at the time. So essentially saying I was hearing every third word and writing down words that just randomly came into my mind. So the first part, reclined with 12. If I'm to put on my eyes again at this point in time, I would say that this was Jesus saying his piece and then reclining back to see the ripples of his words' effect. For at this point in time, Jesus had already knew that he was going to die and has sat back and accepted his fate and became at peace with it and just wanted to see how his people will react. The second line, truly one began to say, one is me. The truth is that one will start to speak out, that it is me who will betray him. The betrayers being Leo and Jesus. The ones and Judas being the one who betrays the public and Jesus. The third line, he who has dipped shall betray the Son of Man will go. The one, Leo, who dips his hand into the sea of truth will betray the Son of Man, humans, but not the Son of God, Jesus, but will go and see the truth or maybe something else or someplace else. The fourth line, but it would be better for him if he were to not have been born, my interpretation. But the world will not accept his facts as truth if he were to divulge them. They will disregard them as blasphemy and lead him into a life of insane sanity. For he knows what he knows is truth, but because they do not agree, he is the one who is insane. Remember, people once thought the sun circled around the world. The last line, Rabbi, you have said so. You, the rabbi, the leader in the community, and the speaker of the truth that has been passed down through man's words, whose perspective is human, not divine, and whose experiences or instructions have said so, and who are also of man. Since you are in such position as the leader, we must follow. Careful who you follow, friends. The second paragraph. All right, this is the first line. The cloud and shadow of time, the past and present, meld into one. Leonardo's true vision, his true secrecy, was to make it well enough as to make it bad, so that over time, some will have to edit and replace. This is the first part, the clouded shadow of time. The real nature is that life is like a comic book with the start of the universe being the front cover and the end being the last. And there is some being who wrote it and can flip through the pages. Now, this is true for the nature of the universe that we live in our lives ourselves. They can skip to page 42 and go back to 16, then rewrite 43 because they have the power to do so. Now, some in this life may be granted with the ability to have the whole book stored inside their mind and know the exact place and time and why they exist, what they must do, and where they must be at those points in time so the story can continue as the quote-unquote divine force intended it to. The divine force we're going to call Greg. The next line, the past and present meld into one. Leonardo's true vision, his true secrecy was to make it well enough as to make it bad. Leonardo was granted a look at that book of time and decided to create a piece that would be able to stand it and stand the test of time and deterioration and restoration, and so it could be analyzed until it got to a point in time where some 22-year-old in an art history class who didn't even know he was going to be in that class looked at it and was like, oh shit, look at that. The next line. This master knew his place in the world. He had read his book and many others. The mouth was closed, but now was open, and the betrayer was of colored, yet he had a white hand. The mouth of Christ was originally closed as to hold in the secret at that time, but through restoration it is now open to tell some truth. The betrayer was of color, yet he had a white hand, and Jesus, as it appeared to me that day, had one of color. It was as if Judas and Jesus switched places or were connected as they were reaching for something. The next line. Jesus predicted it as his own. Jesus took it upon himself to take his own life, knowing that Judas was playing his part. Not that he was just going to be betrayed by some dude randomly. It was like, oh God, what are you doing, man? The next line, only blocked by a cloth, Jesus knew his fate and took it as his own. This dude took his own life and laid it upon another person. He has read his book as well, many times over, and seeking the best outcome for all of the world. This was my interpretation. The hand of Judas was only blocked by a cloth. There is no clear connection from his hand to his arm, so it could be anyone, but for now, let's say it's Jesus's. Jesus had seen the comic book of time and took it upon himself to take his own life because he believed it would be the best outcome for the world, good and bad. And good and bad, we're all here today. All right, the next line is where it gets a little bit trippy, but I'm going to do my best to explain. Shooting the arrow from the Big Bang and clipping off a hair, not the head, he chose the chosen one to write the end of his book, but yet lives on. This dives deeper into a personal trip of mine that I took while on acid that would take too long to go in, but to essentially say is it's to imagine yourself as an archer, and the moment the universe pops into existence, you shoot a cosmic arrow. And you are such a trained marksman that you know that as that arrow flies through time and space, it lands on Earth and clips off a lock of your hair, and it doesn't even take off your head and kills you. Just so that you know and notice that it's happening. The Cosmic Archer hit me that day when we saw this. The Cosmic Archer probably hit Leonardo that day when he wanted to paint this. Knowing, but to a greater extent, feeling where the arrow will land and waiting for it to hit its mark at that exact moment of time. The Cosmic Archer has that type of accuracy, and the Cosmic Archer is the dude who's behind it all, named Greg. Again, Greg shot Leonardo to write the end of Jesus' book as a painting, but yet even Leo, through time, and Jesus still have a legacy. That's the whole, but yet he lives on. The next line, Judas stares into the eyes of John and Mary, trying to apologize for what he has done, but she shall not meet his gaze. Judas knows that it is him who betrayed Jesus and knows that Mary knows. And I've heard a theory that they believe it's Mary, not John, and I found a picture of it saying that the belief is true, so I'm just going to post that. And essentially saying that Judas tries to apologize, but he already knows that it's done, and the wheels are already in motion, and Mary shall not meet his gaze to accept his apology. And guys, the next part is where shit really pops off. We're going to go deeper into the rabbit hole. We're probably over 10 minutes at this point. I'm sorry, but just stick with me here. The angle of the figures on the left side bring a great sweeping motion to the end of her neck, being Mary. She has accepted her fate as the life she has brought in to heal this world has been taken out by one of his men. The hand's angle also reaches out and hits the crown of Jesus' head, and the apostles on the right side bring it up higher. Jesus' hand is black, son, or at least darker. And that was the last part. Now, my only comment of this was up higher. Maybe like a constellation. And this is where we dive in deep. This is where we switch to video, son. Hello. So last I left you, we were talking about constellations and the Last Supper. Now, what I want to talk to you about it is, as I throw up this image of my phone, now, I woke up one morning at what seemed to be 5:23 in the morning for no reason, because that never happens, because I never wake up. I barely show up, as I told you. Now, I just kind of woke up, and then I kind of was thinking about constellations, but I didn't exactly know which one. I kind of figured it's like, it probably is this one, but I don't know enough about it. So I was like, let's look at constellations for a hot second, see if we can find any. So this is what I did. This was the conclusion that I came to at the top, where it's like, okay, so this dives into the universe of time and placing everything in the universe and everything, just collective consciousness, guys. Let's just look it up. All right, so I looked down. I was like, hey, look, that kind of looks like it. The Scorpio, right? Yeah, cool. Okay. Now, let's flip that on its head. Okay, so we're going to flip that on its head, and it's like, okay, it kind of looks like the form that I'm kind of just showing, which I'll show you, like, here, but it shows up later down there, but I'll show you it here, of what the basic line form looks like. All right. So then we're going to look up, and I was like, oh, shit, that's Libra. It's like, I'm a Libra. It's like, I didn't know they were so close. Oh, fuck. What's that thing on the top of it? Oh, shit, that's the sun. The sun, at whatever time it was at that day, was just chilling on the top of the head of the scales of Libra. And I was like, well, motherfucker. Look at that. And I drew a picture, a quick diagram of like what I thought it would be at the Last Supper. And I was like, and I'm a Libra, and the sun's at the tip of the scales. It was like, well, bam. But alternatively, there could also be this. Because I read that it is the forehead, actually. You know, the thing means forehead in whatever Arabic language that means. So moving on. of Christ. And these 3 stars connect the Scorpio to the base of the Libra scales. And now the International Space Station, we're just cruising by, just saying what's up. Just kind of, hey, hey, what's up, dude? I hope you're having a good day. And I was like, hey, I hope you guys are having a good day too, floating in space. And then what else? And me and Southern Claw. And then I essentially looked up what that meant, Al Zuban Al, and I can't pronounce that, into Google. And this is what I kind of came up with. And a very important keynote that will play into further videos that I will make about this is 543 and when I discovered this. So check out for that. But essentially, just look that up, and I'll put a link in the description, and you guys can look it up. But essentially, just reading, my mind being continually blown. We got to this. I found this image. I believe it means something deep, but then I looked at it, and I was like, that kind of looks like a thing that I drew like the other day. And I was like, oh, that's fucking crazy. So then I looked at it, and I found a thing at Savers that I found the Last Supper, the picture of the Last Supper at Savers for $4, which was crazy because I was like, the same day. So there's that, right? Okay, so now the next part. We're going to take this to the next level. This is even deeper. This is the deepest part of the rabbit hole. Now, throughout the entire picture of the Last Supper, there have been 3 forms. 3 forms that have continued to show up in different perspectives. Now, I'm going to show you this. I'm actually going to bring this up on my laptop so I can direct it to it. All right, so we have had some technical difficulties. I now am resorting to using my phone as a microphone because this is just cosmically hilarious, and it just really shows that the entire thing is a fucking just... You'll figure it out. So I'm going to bring up 3 images. We are going to first start with what the dude was pointing at who cut off Mary's head and where that kind of left. So we're going to look at the picture of the refectory and where the Last Supper is seated. All right, you see that? Okay, so it's pointing out in that general direction. Now, I went on Google and I looked up a picture about where that was. And then you can see it kind of shoots out into the center of like this little circle-y hole here. I kind of outlined it for you just to make it a little bit easier. These are the 3 central forms that all show up. Now, the cool thing about this is this also happens to be right here on my wrist, right there on my wrist. I did this to myself about fucking like 2 years ago, maybe around there, before not even acknowledging half, even a quarter of the shit that I like came into contact with now. But okay, cool. So that's there, right? Now I'm going to show you what happened literally earlier today. So literally I was walking down the stairs and I was like, here's a picture of, the setup that we got going on right here. You can see them right there. And then we got these cool things, which are called water droplets. They just happened because I was like holding some water and just spilled on my laptop. Luckily I got the case so the shit doesn't bust. And then I was looking down, I looked at my wrist and I was like, hey, wait a minute. That looks very, very familiar. That looks wow, look at that. But guys, I'll just leave that there. You can also find these 3 forms within the Last Supper, and I'll just point them out really quick, rapid fire. I'll just pause the video or whatever and rapid fire point them out really quick and how they're actually next to Judas and Jesus there as well. So the last 2 things, guys, are these 2 dots that I've outlined that are just kind of chilling above. These 2 dots actually started me on this mystic journey 3 years ago, over 3 years ago, actually probably about 3 years ago this time. I was flying over a plane and I saw these 2 things in the sky and all of a sudden my life just changed and it was crazy. So I tried to figure out, okay, so in perspective, where would these 2 things be if they were on this map? I'm going to show you the full shebang of where I thought it was going to be. So we have it here. We have the Palazzo, which is, I'm assuming I think it's actually very like central. It is central. I think it's very popular. So I'm going to count that as 1. And then if we were to look at it from the perspective of the Last Supper with the dude pointing, we're going to look at it there. And I was like, well, that's a very interesting odd house form. Let's see what that kind of looks like. So I outlined it. Cool. Yep. Everybody cool. I outlined it and then I flipped it. And I looked at it and I was like, whoa, dude, that kind of looks like that. That's called the universal Gotham. This, between time and space and structure, and I can't even explain that. That's just me being like, okay, all right. And don't even get me started on the Mona Lisa. There's some shit in there too that I found out. Damn. Metaphor. Mic drop. I'll catch you guys later. You know, I'm sitting here editing this video and I realize I didn't really explain what my conspiracy theory was about or what conclusion I really came to. I just kind of concluded with, haha, you know, it's a universal God. The theory or the conclusion that I've come to is that even between time and space, even though the 1500s were so long ago and Leonardo existed so long ago, and even if I'm crazy enough to believe that all the things that I have said are in fact true, it does still put me in a place of joy, because I have discovered through this that I have a special set of skills, I have a special way to view the world, I have a different view on the world, and it then makes me believe that I indeed do have a purpose in this place, in this grand game that we're all playing. That Leonardo had me go on this entire journey just so he can kind of get me with one of these, saying, hey, gotcha. And if you look even deeper into the Mona Lisa, you're going to find out that there's more to it, but we're not going to get into that right now. The biggest thing that I want to say, to take away from all this, the end of the conspiracy theory, how Leonardo has been fucking with the game since the game wasn't even the game, is this. Take and eat the world, drink the water that is made for all. I will not drink or eat it because the world will be unpure. I shall enjoy it in its fullness when the world turns over to new. We are all healed by my world, and we shall all live anew. Sab Ek. Sab Ek means all one. All one essentially just boils down to, guys, we're all the same shit, made of the same shit, vibing off the same shit, and just doing not what we should be doing all the time, but still. But yet still, there's wars, there's dividing lines, there's, you know, different cultures, languages, there's all these things that separate us, when in the end, it can be easily resolved with two words, which is all one. And it means that even though Leonardo lived in the 1500s, he somehow figured out that this dude living in the 21st century, sitting in an art history class that he didn't even know he was signed up for, saw this, figured it out, and is now telling you that it's all one. And we're all one big collective family. And just because you speak a different language or you look a different way doesn't mean that we all aren't the same. So, if anything, the message Leonardo wanted me to get across to you is, have fun and look at the world through different eyes. And don't judge people because of things they have or things they've been through. Look at the work that they produce and then judge them based off of that. Thank you.